Many people are currently searching for the best country to live outside the US, and we found a way to actually move out without having to make that decision. Back in 2022, we were trying to become expats, but we decided in the end to just be full-time travelers.
In this video, we're going to give you our pros and cons of being a full-time traveler versus picking one country to live in. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
In 2022, we thought it would be really cool to experience life outside the US. At the time, it had nothing to do with politics or anything else like that. I had recently found that I was eligible for Italian dual citizenship after finding my birth mother. We have an article that talks about how we named our channel Finding Gina Marie, and that's all tied to it. In one of our early videos, we actually went to Italy to explore 6 cities in 12 days as potential places to live. While we were on that trip, it turned out that moving to Italy was a really complicated process. And even through the dual citizenship process, I wasn't allowed to live there while we were going through it. So that meant that we had to pivot. I'm still working on dual citizenship with Italy, but it's still going to be another 2 years after the 2.5 years that I've already spent working on it.
At the time, we were looking at some YouTube videos, and the real rage then was moving to Portugal because their visas were really easy for people who were working remotely or had some sort of independent income that they could just live in Portugal and do that. So we looked at that and said, okay, we can't go to Italy. Maybe Portugal is a solution for us, and that would be a perfect place. It's close enough where we could get to Italy and we could explore other parts of Europe.
In fact, we documented our thought process on whether to live in Portugal or somewhere as expats versus becoming full-time travelers. So we have links to a bunch of videos in the description below.
Before we talk about the pros of traveling full-time like we're doing right now, we want to talk about some of the cons of being an expat or someone who's just picked one country to live in. The first issue is that residency can be a tricky process. It definitely has some snags in there. There's paperwork, there's things that you need to check off a list, there's requirements for income, there's a whole bunch of things that you have to take into account. It's not as simple as, oh, let me go down the list of favorite countries and just throw a dart at one. You have to consider a lot of things, and we want to go through those.
So when we were considering where to live outside the United States, the most obvious places for us to consider were in Europe. But we didn't really know about the Schengen rules.
Yeah, Schengen is basically a group of countries, which keeps growing as we keep looking at places to live in Europe, that require you to only stay 90 days out of every 180-day period. We have videos about that. We'll link in the description below.
If you want to get a longer stay tourist visa, there are some rules you have to follow. You have to show a letter of employment stating your current occupation and earnings. You have to have proof of income, which means that you need bank statements or copies of your investment portfolio. You need to have proof of medical insurance so you're not a health burden on the country. And you also have to have proof of accommodations.
That's a long way of saying that getting residency is a time-consuming process, can be pretty complicated. There are definitely some things that have to be worked out. You may have to talk to landlords, you may have to talk to banks, you may have to get paperwork done. There are a lot of steps in this process that may not be clear up front.
There's also some catch-22s in all of that process. Long-term accommodations are hard to get without a visa, and it's hard to get a visa unless you already have long-term accommodations. Same thing with, let's say, getting the gas turned on. You have no credit history in a country, so they're reluctant to give you access to certain things that you need to establish yourself.
Especially if you're trying to put a deposit on things like the apartment or the gas bill, you'll need something local. They won't take your foreign accounts all the time, and so you need a local bank account, which again goes back to what do they want before the foreign bank account? It's all very convoluted.
And those things are another level of complicated if you are looking at a country that is not English speaking.
Yeah.
A lot of countries don't do things as straightforward as the United States. There can be a lot of bureaucracy to work through.
And to cut through some of that, it really helps if you have a local that you know that may be able to work the system better for you, has done it before, and doing it on your own, again, like Judy said, you may run into language problems or other things that you just don't know that's how they do things in that country.
Especially certain countries don't even allow you to file it online. So you may have to have that local person go with you into a government office, and there may be a long series of lines that you have to walk into, and it may take multiple visits to have all of the documentation that you need in order to progress your process.
We learned some of this when we were investigating moving to Portugal. We were in San Francisco, and to move to Portugal, we had to have things set up locally in the country. But then we had to do some of the other things from San Francisco, like we couldn't move there until we had residency set up. So there was this cross of, okay, it's not that simple to just go over there and do everything. You have to plan a lot of this, and that scheduling process really blew our minds. We weren't really ready to delay our trip over to Europe by weeks or months because we had to get paperwork done.
And of course, it's not like there are clear timetables on anything. There can be very convoluted hoops that you have to jump through. And because of backlogs, sometimes it takes a lot longer than you would expect it to.
Yeah, especially if more people are doing this process. Over the years, it's changed dramatically. So you have to investigate, not just watch a 2-year-old video and say, okay, that's the way it is today. Things change all the time.
And don't think that you are exempt from the Schengen rules if you decide you want to just purchase property or a home somewhere. You still are under those same constraints. You just own property that you can't stay in full time.
And if you do buy property in another country, remember that you can't trust the market is going to be a seller's market. So if you have investments in this property and you can't unload it, you need to make sure you have the cash flow to be able to do something somewhere else. Especially if you've been to that country and suddenly you change your mind and say, I really don't want to live here for some reason. Make sure you know what you're investing in.
So when we were thinking about all of this, we thought about all of our stuff and we had to make some decisions. Did we want to pack everything up and take it with us? When we looked at the price of all that, it was pretty expensive, especially if you're not having a company move you, which is, of course, the easiest way to do it. But when it's coming out of your own dime, you really have to think long and hard about how much stuff you want to travel with.
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking ahead about what you actually want to take, what you actually want to do. You have to be prepared for this because when we first started thinking about moving, we thought, well, we can move a lot of our stuff. And then we had to think about it again. We said, okay, we need to move a lot less. And then we decided full-time travel is like, we need to get rid of everything.
Actually, what I think happened was that as we were starting to get rid of stuff, it started to feel really, really good.
That's true.
And I decided, you know what? I don't want stuff. Why don't we just consider full-time travel and not have to deal with any of it?
Yeah, once you make some of the hard decisions about getting rid of stuff, that's like, well, screw it. Why are we saving anything then? This is ridiculous. But it does take thought. It takes preparation. I mean, we had to make these decisions ahead of time. We couldn't decide, we'll just go and figure this stuff out later because we're paying for it to be somewhere, right?
Yes, we have an entire downsizing series that will help you to think through it all and to actually go through the process.
So when we talked about all this paperwork and all this preparation, things you need to do to get into another country, if this is going to take weeks or months, do you have the energy and the desire to go through the whole process? It's really important that you know ahead of time that it could keep getting extended and you need to prepare yourself for this.
We also think it's really important to have an on-the-ground trip or two, several, over an extended period of time because going somewhere as a tourist is going to feel significantly different than when you're planning to live somewhere full-time.
Yeah, spending a week going out to restaurants and enjoying some of the sights is all fun and games. But then when you actually have to shop or do your basic life duties of getting around and living, it feels very different.
In fact, when we were looking at Porto and Lisbon, I had already known that after living in San Francisco for such a long time, I wasn't really so gung-ho about living in a city with hills. Well, I knew Lisbon was the city of 7 hills, but I didn't realize how hilly Porto was as well.
Yeah, we learned that by staying at the bottom and having to travel to the top every day to do our simple looking around town.
I think it's actually called the sister city of San Francisco.
I don't know, but it was a lot of hills. And, you may find something else that you don't like about a city. So understanding what you're going to walk into and deal with every day is really critical.
So let's talk money. Obviously, one of the most important things is Is the place that you're interested in being affordable? Is it someplace that has a stable economy?
And let's look at the housing market. How available are houses or rental apartments? You need to know that before you get there. And there's also tax implications. If you're earning money in the US or you're earning money on the road wherever you are, there's different ways countries treat taxes. And of course, your US taxes might still apply. All that stuff you need to work out beforehand so you're not surprised that cash flow is different than you expected.
In many countries, there's a 183-day rule, which means that if you are in a country full-time for 183 days, you have to declare your earnings from wherever you've acquired that money. And that could cause you to have double taxation. It may not, but you definitely need to talk to an accountant to understand what the tax implications of that might be.
If you aren't retired, you may need a work visa to work in that country. You also need to possibly bring a unique set of skills to be able to work in a country. A lot of places don't want to give up local jobs for people coming into the country unless they just don't have anybody local for that. If you are retired, then you need to look at what your income levels are and if you qualify for the visas based on how much passive income you have or investment income you have.
So if your visa does require you to only have passive earning, it means that you can't have a side hustle or any sort of income generating work. So you have to really make sure that the amount of money that you have coming in is enough to sustain you.
If you're someone who's already considered moving out of the US and living in a different country, we'd love to hear about that. What countries have you picked and why? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're going to live in a non-English speaking country, and English is your only language, then you have to make a big decision about, are you going to become more immersed in a language? Or are you just looking to find an expat community that speaks your language, that has your same cultural benefits, and you decide you just want to be a little bit separated from the rest of the country?
For us, we really wanted to be immersed in the local culture. If we were going to be moving to a country, we really wanted to experience it fully. But we've been studying Italian for the last 3 years, and we still are far from fluent. So I know that the experience will be a lot different once we're actually in a country, but it is difficult to learn a language as an adult. Since English is such a commonly spoken language, you are probably going to find, unless you're in very small towns, that a lot of people do speak English. But if you're really living with locals, there are going to be people who don't speak English. And one of the things that you really have to be concerned about is how lonely you'll be. You may know how to buy groceries or that kind of thing, but can you share your thoughts and ideas about television shows or common interests, gardening, whatever, in the language that most people are speaking? Or are you going to be off by yourself, isolated, and that may not really be the kind of experience that you want to have?
Yeah, we had experience recently where we were sitting down with a gentleman that helped us with a tour, gave us some really good tips about the place we were looking at. So we invited him to have coffee, we sat down with him. He spoke Italian, we speak poor Italian, and the conversation was just so frustrating because I wish we would have been better at it. We would have really enjoyed this cultural exchange so much more if we could just have been a little more fluid.
Yeah, and that was in Albania. So, of course, he spoke Albanian and Italian, and we speak caveman Italian.
Sad.
So let's be clear. No place is perfect. You may be leaving the US for a myriad of reasons, and one of them could be politics, but there are political issues everywhere in the world. And as a visitor, you're not going to be able to vote. So you have no say in what's happening in that particular country.
Especially if there's a lot of bureaucracy, and you're trying to figure out how to get through it, and language issues come up, and you're frustrated because you just can't do anything about it. I mean, that happens a lot. It's all over the world. There's no place that's going to solve all the problems that you may run into where you live right now.
And even if you're looking at English-speaking only countries, they can be really expensive.
Yeah. Going to London, wow, the prices have really shot up there.
Actually, all of the UK and Ireland, we loved Ireland, but it was way too cold for us.
Yeah, downsides and upsides to every place.
As we kind of briefly talked about, you're going to be in a country that may not have your favorite kinds of foods, and you may not be able to just go online and order something and pick it up or have it delivered from a big box store. There may not even be big box stores. So there's going to be a lot of adjustments any place that you live.
And you may like those. I mean, it may be helpful to shake up your life a little bit. It has worked for us. We're kind of sad that we spend a lot of time ordering everything from Amazon, having it delivered. Shopping locally is a pretty cool experience, especially in some of these countries. But you have to be aware that it's going to be a change of pace and things you're going to have to adjust to and learn.
So we've gone through all of the challenges of living in one country outside of the US. But as we mentioned, we went through this entire process of weighing pros and cons, and we're here now to share with you some of the reasons why we decided to be full-time travelers instead of landing one place permanently.
One of the first reasons we chose to go full-time traveler is that we could do it right away. I mean, there wasn't any precursor. We actually had bought tickets to go on a vacation trip and said, we're just going to use those tickets. We're just going to go over to Europe, start in Italy, and decide where to go from there. So it took nothing. We had no requirements for visas to get into Italy at the time. I mean, all these rules changed. You always have to check on them. But basically, if you want to go to a country, you can pretty much do that. You can buy tickets and go there. And if there's a problem with that country that you can't get there for some reason, you get to pick a different country. You haven't set up this long series of requirements to get you into a country. You're just deciding to go.
And it's not as easy for some people with passports, but as Americans, most of the world is wide open to you to explore. So as I mentioned earlier, the idea of carrying around less stuff and having less overhead was really appealing to me. I didn't really love how consumer focused we were. And of course, you can choose not to be that way, and you may not be that way now. But by carrying around a backpack and a carry-on bag apiece, we really are forced to limit our consumerism. And I like that about it.
Yeah, we have fewer monthly commitments. So we're not limited to what rent payment we had in San Francisco or what utilities we had to pay. We go to a country and we choose to live there for a while. And if it's an expensive country, then we say, okay, that was fine, but now we'll go find some cheaper place to live to balance out this cost. We get to control our budget a lot more because we're not locked into one price point per month.
One thing that we know about ourselves is that we like to travel. And the idea of being in one place with a lot of monthly overhead that we're required to maintain means that we have a lot less money to travel. So by traveling full time, we really don't have that dilemma.
And for us, it's been wonderful to explore the world without having to worry about paying for housing costs somewhere.
We also really like to cherry pick our weather, which means that for as much as we love northern Italy, we don't love it in the winter months, which means that from let's say November to March, we choose to be outside of Europe into warmer weather climates like Southeast Asia, or this year we're in South America. And that means that you can pack less. We travel in 3 seasons primarily. We avoid the biting cold of winter, which means we don't have to carry around heavy winter jackets or scarves or gloves, which means we get to pack less.
And as with the best seasons for weather, there are also better seasons for costs. It can be more expensive to travel in certain times of year to certain countries, and knowing when they have their shoulder seasons, the time of year when maybe there's less tourists there, maybe the weather's not as hot or as cold as you want, whatever your choice is, but they still could be more affordable. So you want to pick those spots. And as full-time travelers, we get to do that.
In fact, we did exactly that in Athens, Greece. It was on our bucket list, but it's a pretty expensive country to visit. We went in January where the prices were lower, the crowds were less. We had an incredible experience, and it was much more affordable, a place we probably wouldn't have been able to travel to otherwise.
And because you get to control how long you're staying in a place, you may find that you can get discounts for staying a little bit longer. Judy does it all the time when she books Airbnbs. Sometimes they give a 4-week discount or maybe even shorter than that in some places, but you get to make that decision and save some money.
I know some people stay 3 months and can negotiate even better, more competitive prices, but it doesn't mean that you have to live there full-time forever.
Traveling full-time has really expanded our way of thinking. It allows us to experience cultures and different ways of living, and it also has a side effect of governments don't matter as much as you think they do. When you go to a country, and maybe it's a communist country like Vietnam, we're asking the people about how does it feel here to be in a communist country, and they're like, doesn't matter. As long as we have the ability to sell the things we want to sell, buy the things we want to buy, We don't care what the government does. And we've experienced that. It's like when you're there for a shorter period of time, what the government does or doesn't do doesn't affect you as much.
But that's not to say that you have to go to every country. There are certain places that our politics don't align, that we're not comfortable sending our money to. So we just avoid them.
After traveling for a couple of years, we've really learned that variety is the spice of life. We enjoy learning new things. We enjoy trying new things. We enjoy being able to walk around cities and explore and just discover things that we didn't know we liked before. And I think that's the key for us right now is this has become like an addiction for us, that we want to find out more about the world. We want to find out more about other countries. It has grown on us.
And at first, I thought that I would really miss not having my own bed or my own pillow. Now, if you're someplace for 3 months at a time, which you certainly could do, buy your own pillow so that you feel like you have a say in it. For us, it's kind of like, well, we're only here for a month. I can put up with anything. And the flip side is that sometimes we're in places and the new is just really exciting, like really small things. Like this particular Airbnb we're in has a nightstand on both sides of the bed. So it's kind of like, woo woo, we have these cool small things that make us happy that we wouldn't even think about in our home.
It may sound trite, but we found that the more you learn about the world, the more you learn about yourself. I didn't know there were things that I wanted to do, but now I do want to do those things, and it's because we've traveled and pushed ourselves a little bit.
I've also actually learned quite a bit about history that I never knew before, because when you're traveling, everything comes to life in a way that they don't always do in textbooks.
If you're doing full-time travel, the one advantage that tops all the others is you don't have to keep doing it. If you don't like doing it, you just stop. You didn't make a long-term commitment to one country. You haven't bought a house or put out a long-term rent policy. Just stop if you don't want to.
But in the meantime, you may find a place to live that you hadn't considered before, or you might know a little bit more about the places that you have on your list. In fact, we're going to Uruguay next month, and people have said that it's a great retirement country. It was not on our radar ever, but we're excited to explore it. We're nowhere near ready to settle down, but we'll keep it in our back pockets so that when we are ready, we'll have some additional insights.
When people find out that we're full-time travelers and we've traveled to dozens of countries, the first question they ask is, oh, which one did you like best? It's like, well, that's a ridiculously hard question. All of them, and for different reasons.
I mean, of course, we really like Italy, which is why I'm pursuing dual citizenship there. But we also really enjoyed Poland. And we also found the people in Cambodia and Thailand incredibly kind. And we thought that Albania was really affordable, and we really liked Serbia too.
Now, these were not countries at the top of our list. In fact, Cambodia, we almost took off, and I'm so glad we didn't. And I think a lot of this happened because when we started traveling, we went to Egypt early in our travels, which kind of broke me of the stereotype of it's got to be a European city. So this expansion of what do you need and what don't you need? What do you like and what don't you like? And just because we can't pick one favorite place, we still have places that we really love. So if you want to know more about the places that we might settle down in the future as expats, let us know in the comments below.
And if you're one of those people who've been asking us again and again, how much do we spend to live a life of full-time travel? We're going to share that video next week. So subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. We have a slew of full-time traveler resources on our website and also in our YouTube channel videos.
Check out findingginamarie.com, where you can find out about our insider perks, sign up for our newsletter, or join La Familia, our free community forum.
Until next time.
Until then.